For
Hey
real, for
guys,
real.
it's been a while. It's me, Judy, and
Yeah,
Kiswensida.
yeah, peace be with you guys. And ladies, I hope that you're feeling all right, wonderful, ecstatic, and euphoric.
Yeah, it's been a really long time, and it's a beautiful weather out there. So we're changing the scenery and we're taking in the sun because the sun is beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so we were having a conversation, myself and Kiswensida. Like we always have these conversations where we talk about being African, your Africanness. What does it mean when you say you're African? You know, especially in this era of globalization. What does it mean to you? Especially with this new wave of people coming to identify as something, and then you'd have Black Americans saying, "Oh, they're not African Americans; they're Americans." I understand the reason for wanting to do that or for doing that because, you know, being taken across the Atlantic was not your choice, right? Your ancestors were taken across the Atlantic, and then you were made to survive on another land. And now that there is this new era of awareness of identity, this whole race theory thing. And then some people are saying, oh, you don't belong here. So where do you belong, right? So I understand the need to identify as American because yes, you were born there. So but also at the same time, I argue that when the identification was being done, like the classification, I would say classification of the black race, we were not classified as much as the ethnic group thing was intentional, like saying naming people, calling these people, like I come from Nigeria, saying these ones are Nigerians because they come from the Niger area, and then these are the Yoruba ethnic groups.
Mhm.
These are the Igbo ethnic groups, the Hausa ethnic groups. Like the classification was not done by us, right? We were just existing as people trying to understand ourselves, trying to understand our environment. And, but, some explorers, missionaries, historians, anthropologists, or social scientists came onto our lands and saw the need to start classifying us, and then we have accepted these classifications as our identities. So it was until later on where people started protesting against the need to classify people as a race, saying no, that's wrong. Why should you even do that? Human is human. That's when we started seeing the need to now say, okay, you know what? I am a human being first. But unfortunately, as Africans, we have now held on to these identities that were given to us
Mm,
by foreigners, and it's affecting our psyches right now. It's affecting even the way we relate with each other in the home front or on the home front, and even abroad in the diaspora. And Case when Cesar mentioned something earlier about Egyptians, like Egypt, like having a conversation with someone from Egypt not identifying as African.
yeah, okay. So I had a conversation actually. It was yesterday, so it's very fresh with an Egyptian, a brother from Egypt, very nice guy. And he's the thing I applaud from him is that he's self-aware as an individual because he realizes that identity is playing a huge role in African unity. And he also, stated that he realized, like in Egypt, how there's some Egyptian, you know, the typical beige skin, right? Egyptians that thinks that they're not African and they have nothing to do with Africa. And there are some who say that they're also not Arabs because the country has been Arabized. And he also said that there's also some Egyptians that actually embrace their Africanness, but African don't recognize them as African.
Mm.
So that's That's the what he stated, and he was from the point of view that we have to awaken people to, each people embrace their culture, and together we can progress as a
As a
for as
unit.
a unit. But here's the thing: it's very difficult when what you have learned about your so-called identity puts you in a situation where you neglect the other. And there's a problematic between African and Arabs. It's a very delicate situation,
Mm.
and I wish we had you know a guest from Egypt for also we can hear his or her perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But the relationship between Arabs and Africans and the continent is unfortunately one-sided, and there's a lot of misunderstanding, in my opinion.
Yeah, even if we had someone from Egypt, I feel like we'll just here have like maybe we'll still have that one-sided opinion because you cannot one person cannot represent the whole of Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Because like he's the brother from Egypt said that there are some Egyptians that identify as black while some don't identify as, and just like the ethnic rivalry and the tribalism happening in Nigeria, where some people like don't identify as like they don't even identify with these terms, this bigot, terms or these classifications. They just see themselves as, I'm a human being. This person is a human being. This person is my brother. While some people are upholding this, tribalistic systems and empires that have been put in place, by people, and then these people they put these structures in place for their own interest, and I guess it also appealed to our African ancestors that were also, as at that time, it appeals to them. That's why they were able to continue this heritage of tribalism, and now it's still being upheld even in the 21st century, even after we are having intertribal marriages.
Hmm.
Now in these days, like you see people marrying from different, different ethnic groups or different tribes. And so if you're identifying as, okay, if the partner identifies as one thing and the other partner identifies as another thing, and what does the child identify as?
And okay, that's very interesting. Hold on that. So first of all, this conversation is not to, it's not to abuse anybody, right? It's about asserting something, an issue that is, in my opinion, underneath the surface, as if it's not happening, beneath smiles and, you know, politeness. But for real, it's something that it's between the line. You feel that tension. So for me, this conversation is important to put the finger and to point the gaze as a collective, as an African collective, where we need to improve and do better.
Mm.
And to go back to what you were saying about when you have two different ethnic groups that have a children, what do the children identify as? I have a nice anecdote for you. Let's say right here we're in Germany. So let's say I marry a German woman and I have what they call a biracial child. And then I bring my wife and my children to Burkina Faso. And then that girl, my child, my daughter, she married, let's say, another African, and they also got a children. And my daughter tells her children, my grand children, that she identify as German, as the German side, because German is prosperous, German is stable, German is developed, develop.
Civilized.
Yeah. So, and when you look at, for example, East Africa, for example, East Africa is very Arabized. like Islam, like Islamized. I mean, like Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya. I think 13,000 years ago. It's a very long time. So it's a culture that has been religion that has been practiced to the point that culture has mixed into it, that over time people even identify themselves as Arabs
Mm.
even though they're black.
Mm.
You see that a lot.
Mm.
And for example, if you look at Sudan, which is a great example to demonstrate here, in Sudan, people from the north, like you have the power being given to the Muslim, because it was independent in 1956, and once it was independent, Islamic laws were applied.
Mm.
So that's the reason why it created a rift between um, the population, because it was basically forcing the majority of the population. Not everybody was Christian. There was also some Muslim, pardon me. There was also some Christian. There were also some people who were practicing African spirituality that they call animism.
Mm.
People that were practicing traditional that were having traditional practices. So when the laws of your country is tuned into one single paradigm
Mm.
that you necessarily don't fit in, you kind of there's a sentiment of revolt, of indignation.
Yeah.
And this is also what led to the secession of Sudan in 2011. Like it's this how do I call it, some people, as like although black and African in color, and some also that have black ancestry, they deny their Africanness, and they side themselves with the Arabness.
Mm.
Light skin is valorized, is appreciated.
Mm.
Dark skin is rebuked. It's
Mm.
rejected.
Mm.
Um, Imported religion, because it wasn't the authentic, like the indigenous religion of this area of the continent,
Mm.
is appreciated, and traditional religion is dismissed.
It's interesting because I'm like taking some courses this semester, and we are dissecting what traditional is and what indigenous is, what foreign is, and the fact that as an African, that I have to like now define indigeneity. For me, at first, I felt a kind of resistance. Like, why do I have to define indigeneity? I'm African.
Do you feel like it's like your birthright is put into question,
Yeah,
that you have to define
and defend it, because now we are in this era of globalization where anyone can you can claim to be anything. And if someone says, oh, I don't identify as this thing, then the person is seen as being maybe that's a racial slur, or that person is not considerate of others. For example, I we had this discussion in class, and someone was asking me, okay, what is indigenous to Bayreuth? Because we're presently in Bayreuth, right? That because many of the things that Bayreuth claims now to be, oh, okay, Bayreuther, or this is Bayreuth, Bavaria, like potatoes, the kartoffel. This was not like an indigenous food that grew from the soil. It was brought from somewhere else, and then people now started eating it. So what would you now call indigenous? So I said the beer, for example, because I know I was at this bunker, and I heard the history of how when soldiers were fighting the war, the bunker is still in existence still today. And then they took the soldiers that survived, they'll take them underneath the bunker to heal them. Like, you could still see the pictures, and of those times, and it was beer that sustained them. So even here in Barrett, a child is used to drinking beer because it's a part of their heritage. It
Yeah,
holds a lot of history for
the
them.
nervous system.
Yeah, because they were able to make out beer from natural things, from bread, from kartoffel. It's not just like now that okay, alcohol consumption is now high that everyone now like. So they were able to survive on these things. So I said, okay, for me, I would say beer, but I don't know about any other thing. So and then the question of this jollof rice thingy,
Hmm.
like because they say jollof rice originated from it's wall of the original term is wall of rice. It originated from the wall of people like the Gambians and the Senegalese, right?
Yeah,
Until Nigerians, claimed it, and now they call it jollof rice, and now it's known to Nigeria. So would you say jollof rice is indigenous to Nigeria, or would you just say, okay, let's just leave it because they've just been able to adapt it into their cuisine, and now the world is global. Anybody can, come up with anything. Anybody can decide to embrace something else that they find appealing.
I mean, for me to answer your question, you really have to go to the root. You really have to do an investigation, like going back in time, where you unravel event after event in the past.
How do you go back in time? One would argue
I
that
mean, the thing for me, I
the
mean,
people ancestors have died. Like, I mean, if you can still find people that are like 150 years old in Africa or in any place that you want to investigate about, they hold 150 years old of history, or maybe 100 something, maybe when their brain started developing. They don't hold the history before them. Okay, they could have some of the history that was passed down to them, but one would also argue about the authenticity
hmm,
of history.
authenticity.
Yeah, especially when it's been said that African history or African, most of our claims they're not scientifically, we have not been able to prove them beyond reasonable doubt that these things actually exist or these things are actually true. So like this era of needing to like this plagiarism, don't claim what doesn't belong to you. You now need to prove beyond reasonable doubt that this thing is true. How do you prove authenticity? So there are so many questions, and there are so many questions and so many things to dissect, so many things to talk about. But the major question still holds, that how do you prove your Africanness from an African perspective in this era of globalization?
Okay, I can add on to that. Like I was asked by a friend recently, like if you, as an African, you take a European plane to go to Benin or Ghana or Cameroon, does it make you less African? Um, like what makes you African? Is it just wearing the African attire? Is it just eating like food? Is it you know living
African.
in an African architecture, like an African house that is African architecture?
Do we even have African architecture anymore?
I
I mean,
mean,
in Nigeria, all of the building structures are like they are now modeled after Western architecture. That we have this the heat wave, climate change is now, and it's really affecting us badly because we've been made to embrace the structural architecture of climates that are not conducive to us, and now we are reaping like the effects. Everything has everything has effects. Everything that has pros has cons. I wouldn't say that everything is all bad. No labeling. Everything is all good. So we are now currently living in the effects and consequences of those decisions that were taken years ago, and we don't know where to even begin from or what to do next, which
hmm,
leaves us this like I don't even know what am I, fourth generation. I don't know what generation I am, which leaves us in this place where we have to keep on having these conversations, not because we don't have things doing with our time, or because it also leaves these puzzles in my head. And what am I going to explain to the next generation, the generations that are going to come after? especially in this era of globalization where everybody is, claiming to be this and that, and we even have to debate what indigeneity is and what traditional is, because these are terms that were discovered by people. Like, we didn't these are not our, like, these are languages, right? Labels, and
But
now we have to defend them.
don't you think that amidst all of that, the empowering solution should be for us as African to define culture in our own term? How do we redefine African culture? Like, how do we define African principle?
From a sociocultural perspective, culture is not rigid. The same way tradition is not rigid.
Okay.
It's not
Okay.
immovable.
Okay.
It's something that people living in a particular environment consciously or unconsciously agreed upon, based on they're responding to the times that they are in.
Hmm.
They're responding to the environment that they're living in. That's what I see culture as. And any culture that refuses to evolve dies.
Hmm.
Because if it's rigid, it doesn't respond to the times, then it will die. Because the people that the cultures,
No matter how rich that culture is.
yes, no matter how rich the culture is, the people that benefited from that culture no longer exist, or they're almost, they're dying, right?
Hmm.
They've been upholding that culture for years, and now they're dying. And so the new generation of people, they came with their own way of thinking too. Not
Mhm.
like they cannot embrace the said culture that has upheld the people living in that environment, or even that environment, or the nature. But they also came with their, like, they have their own views, their own ways of viewing things differently.
Yeah.
And we need to respect. That's what makes it beautiful. Like, everyone has different way. We can't all look at things the same way and expect it to be original and say, this is how it's done, this is how it's supposed to be done, and nothing should change.
Mm-hmm.
So when new people come and they view this and say, oh, we can do it this way, and still come up with similar results to what you guys came up with, but in a different way, we are going to be responding to our own times.
Mm-hmm.
And there's now a lot of back and forth, like this pushback from the older generation, which is what is happening in many, many African societies today, where the older generations that are supposed to be seen as sages,
Mm.
that, they're supposed to, like, be wise,
And listen to the youth.
listen to the youth, and then pass on, this wisdom, and then say, okay, this is our wisdom, this is what we engage with in our time, this is how we're able to survive. Now we are passing the baton on to you,
Mm.
to now,
Improve, like
yes,
do better.
exactly, improve on it, do better, and then pass it on. Like, that's how I see culture as. But unfortunately, culture has been made to become rigid, and it's like any little thing now you say it's the culture. That's how
So
it
when you
is.
said rigid, you mean like people have been holding tight to beliefs, to ways of life, without welcoming any new
People have
perspective,
been defending their
and that
evil,
has
their own selfish intentions with
and that is the cause of African, like, of one of the
one of
causes.
the causes, defending their
Mm.
selfishness, their selfish agendas, and now defending it with culture, saying it's the culture, is the way we've always done it here, and nothing should change it. Like, I don't see it as immovable. I see culture as, ever evolving, ever revolving.
Mm.
And if we don't, like they say, change is constant. If we don't move with the tides or with the times, we would be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We would be stuck. And that's where many of us find ourselves. We are stuck in these positions that we don't even know where to go, even where we're coming from anymore, or even where to go from here. So we are just like stuck in one position, rigid in one position, and we're saying we're defending. Like, you see an African wearing the African attire, speaking the African language, you know, doing things that he believes or she believes that they're culturally right.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, there's been no improvement, there's been no progress.
Like it's the this effort is only limited to intellectual, or only like intellectual, and also how can I say it? But it's very limited, but it doesn't go beyond pragmatic application.
Yeah.
But here's the thing too. I mean, how can you induce um, pragmatic application onto people? Because I mean, if you look at it from a human nature perspective, like people when they receive like high level information sometimes are not prone to receive that. They're actually more prone to fight that information because they feel like it comes from a place of authority. Like, who do you think you are for
Mm,
imposing
mm,
that in me?
mm.
So they say it's hard to change the mind of an adult, but it's easy for a child. And for me, I mean, there's many medium that allow, awakening or self-realization to happen. There's books, there's movies,
Do we have
documentary.
enough African movies that we can actually say that they're promoting this awakening, or these are just
That's the question.
movies that have been biased, this cognitive bias coming from one angle, like the media. We know the media is a tool for people that have more power, you know, to use, or more money, more access to resources, to use that tool to push an agenda or their own interest on others, on the rest. And then you take on this views, this identity as yours, and you don't even know where you begin and where you end and where others begin anymore. So these are too many things to ponder, and I believe that we would, yeah, we would have other we would dissect this in some other episodes, because I actually have a class to catch right now, and we just decided to do this impromptu recording because it's been a while. It's always interesting having conversations with you guys, or just brainstorming, just putting these thoughts out there. And we hope that some people, some Africans with the heart of, you know, with the heart for Africa like us, will stumble upon this conversations, and we would be able to come together to collaborate and do something together, because it's not a single thing. We cannot single-handedly do it. One thing I love about being here in Paris is the fact that I am able to relate with other people from different parts of Africa, not just Nigeria. I can relate with someone from East Africa, from South Africa, even if just for a brief moment, and it has changed my perspective on the way I view life. It's such a rich experience for me.
Yeah, Africa, like, it's like a tree. It has one, how do you call the,
Branch
yeah, no, no,
or
the
root?
yeah, one root, but different ramifications,
Mm,
but they're all the same. They're all interconnected. And for me, once one have that self-realization that I am and you are,
mm,
we are from the same root. When we have this perception that we're actually extensions of ourselves, like
mm,
if you see me and you're from Botswana and you see me, it's like you're holding a mirror,
mm.
or whatever country you are, like as long as you're black,
Even if we don't agree on the same
yeah,
things.
that will be a big leap towards progress for us as Africans and black people. And we don't like we don't necessarily need to be thinking exactly the same,
Mm-hmm.
because that will defeat the purpose of diversity, of uniqueness,
Mm-hmm.
of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that because you're from a different opinion than mine, that you have to attack me on social media or on visible platform, because that is not leading us nowhere. Like, we have to stop with that kind of sabotaging and that crab bucket mentality.
Mm.
Like, for me, a real brother, he praises you in public but corrects you in private. So as African, let's have this mentality and use it onward to, you know, rebirth our continent, our
The
consciousness.
Ubuntu mentality, the Omoluabi mentality, like we call it in Yoruba, where Ubuntu and Omoluabi, like everybody has different terms for these things, but you know what I mean. Guys, thank
Yeah.
you for your time. Peace, peace, peace be with you all. See you soon.
Ashe.
Yeah.